And we're back. Today we're going to be discussing the width tool. Um, a lot of people are not familiar with this tool. They don't even bother looking at the thing. It's probably because it's not commonly used in the other Illustrator versions. But if you do learn how to use this tool, it can become very, very powerful. So let's get started. If you look in your tools panel, and you go down 1, 2. This is if you have the two columns. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Your eighth icon down, right? Or the 15th icon from left to right, or if it's in the straight, it'll be the 15th one down. It's your width tool, and you can get that through the shortcut Shift and W, which if you hover over it, you can see. Now, as is, this tool does nothing by itself. Essentially what the width tool needs is a stroke. It could be a line, it could be used through your pen tool or maybe a pencil tool. Whatever the case may be, it needs a line segment to start. So we're going to use the pen tool, and we're just going to create a straight line, and we're going to give it some thickness. So we're going to fool around with the weight. And if we look at it, it's just a plain line. There's nothing spectacular about it. I covered some of this in the pen tool instruction course, or the advanced pen tool techniques. So if you want to go back and take a look at that and then come back to this course, you can do that. Or you can just start from here. But what we're going to do now is, after we've created our line segment, and it can go from any point to any point. It doesn't have to look exactly like this. You could have a curved line, whatever you want. But we're just going to, for now, we're just going to use this straight line segment. Matter of fact, we're actually going to make it straighter, just so you can see the significance. Alright, so we're going to grab our width tool. And you'll notice that when you're hovering over anything but a line segment, you have the tool, which almost looks like the tilde key on your keyboard. That's the icon that's underneath the arrow. But if you click on an area on your artboard that doesn't have a line segment, you'll get the circle with a slash through it, which basically means you can't do anything. But if you hover over a line segment, you'll notice it starts to highlight it. It also creates a little anchor point circle that hovers over the area where your cursor is. And then there's a plus icon under your selection tool. So that just essentially means you can click that area if you were to double click it, and you can insert a point at that area. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to double click, and you'll notice when you do that, an option box comes up for your width point edit. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to specify the width on either side of the stroke. Okay, so let's increase only on one side. You'll notice your stroke, it has two sides when you're using the default option. Alright, there's either a top and a bottom, or a left and a right, depending on whether it's horizontal or vertically positioned. And side 1 will always either be the top or the right side when you're adjusting. And side 2, if you look, it should start to increase the width from that point outward, almost as if it's a radius. Okay, so side 2 starts to increase as well. You can also decrease that amount so that it's smaller. And you can also constrain your proportions by clicking the link icon that's in between side 1 and side 2. And as you increase, you'll notice that both sides increase accordingly to maintain the proportion. Okay? You can also just change the total width, and if it already has proportions, it will adjust those automatically. Or if they aren't constrained, you can always just change it individually, but the total width will govern the already decided proportions that you already have input in these boxes according to what your total width is. So it'll do some math and change them accordingly. If there are multiple points and you click this box, it will adjust the adjoining points with respect to the point that you're adjusting. So it'll do some math on the point you're adjusting as well as any additional points that are connected to it. If not, those points will remain unchanged, and then you would have to manually adjust them yourself. Okay? So we click OK, and now you'll notice there is a line segment that runs perpendicular and it crosses over our original line segment. This isn't actually a line segment, but more so a length of the width tool. And we can grab these anchor points and we can now push and pull them the length we want. We can change them. So that's one way of doing it. Another way is to just click and drag whatever point you want on your line. You could also, after you've done that, instead of double clicking and you click and drag, you can also highlight over these points. You can click down on their center point and you can drag them to other locations, which will then flex the shape of your line. Okay? So if you wanted to, you could pinch the ends and make them very, very small. You can change how close they are from one point to another. You can add more points. Change their size, maybe even make it bigger. Now, you can also delete these points. And all you have to do is you would hover over the point you want to delete. When it turns blue, you double click and you click delete. And when you do that, you'll notice that point is no longer there on that line segment. Better indicator, let's delete this big one. And you notice your line adjusts accordingly. Okay, so that's how you create different anchor points and sizes with the width tool using line segments. And you can do this, you just have to be very careful because once you get into more complex lines, you'll notice that using the width tool may give you some awkward endpoints. You see how this endpoint almost looks like a circle that's cut in half? You have to be very careful when you're using it because sometimes you can get erroneous stuff like that where you have to adjust accordingly. And you may not notice it. It could be in the middle of your line, it could be anywhere. You just have to figure out how to flex and shape your line according to that. Okay, so that's pretty much how you use the width tool. It's not that difficult, but if you fool around with it for a bit, you'll get used to different things you can do with the width tool and how to make your lines really unique. So you have a bunch of options you can choose from. Just get familiar with it. Again, study up on some of the previous courses like the pen tool course. Come back and check this out and see what you can make happen with it. Before we actually go anywhere, and just so I make sure you guys know this, when you're using the width tool, there's one thing you have to be certain of. In your stroke panel, and you go to window and you go down to stroke and then it'll open up. Under your align stroke option, the width tool only works when you have align stroke to center, because remember when we bring up our option box for the width tool, it has two sides. If you do align to, and let me show you what it looks like. If you do, let's say you have a fill or a closed shape or a closed path, and you do align to center, you can ultimately change it. But if you notice that using your width tool, but if you notice the actual options for align to inside and align to outside get grayed out and you cannot select them. And the reason why is because it needs both sides of the actual stroke in order to work. So it needs to be aligned to center. If we don't use the width tool, let's say we change it to align to outside, if we try to use it, it won't work because there's only one side that this is going towards. So it needs two sides in order for it to work. The same thing goes for aligning it to the outside or inside. Sorry, I said that the wrong way the other time. But either way, whether it's aligned to the outside or aligned to the inside, you cannot use the width tool on those. It absolutely has to be aligned to center. That is the only way you can do that. And you'll only need to know this when it comes to closed paths. All right? So again, check out the other courses. See what you can bring to the table. Come back, see how you can manipulate this tool, and we will see you in the next course. All right, take it easy.